People, let me tell you about my best friend. He's a warm-hearted pika who will love me till the end. People, let me tell you about my best friend. He's a one-boy cuddly toy, my up, my down, my pride and joy. Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this appointment television. How are you? Welcome back once again. It is time for the golden age of DC Comics. 365 days where I take this beloved hardcover coffee table book given to me about 2 decades ago by one of my best friends. This has been surfing my coffee table ever since, providing me with a constant source of comic book shop-style conversations, the kind we used to have back in the day, and I want to recreate that today with you, right here, right now. I use this 365 days book for its intended purpose. Let me wet my whistle. I got talking to do. What goes better with a coffee table book at this coffee table of YouTube than some freshly brewed coffee? Yes, indeed. Pull up a chair to the coffee table, bring a cup of whatever it is you're drinking, and let's talk comic books. We are using this 365 days book for its intended purpose. Some good stuff. We're going to open up to today's date, which is November the 7th. We're going to look at some comic book art of an antediluvian age. We're going to read the blurb, and then we're going to talk about comic books. And we're going to talk about comic books every day for the rest of the year. So tune in tomorrow, 3 p.m. U.S. Eastern. And it's a great way to learn how to tell time. Turning on those notifications sooner or later, you'll figure out, hey, it's 3 p.m. in Boston. Yes, indeed. You know it. The golden age of DC Comics runs between 1938 and 1955. The silver age between 1956 and 1970. The bronze age, I'm a bronze age baby myself, runs between 1970 and 1984 or 5. And in 85 begins the copper age. I get these definitions and standards from the glossary of the most current edition of the Overstreet Comic Books Price Guide. And this is this is like Zack Snyder's Justice League. I did not expect to enjoy this as much as I do. There, I said it. I said, Fatal J, I'm listening. While I'm throwing some books under your nose, because this is a show about books, and about books. Books about books, about books. I got these two suggestions: Understanding Comics, The Invisible Art by Scott McCloud, and How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. I mean, seriously, we are taking comic books, magazines, these artifacts. We are the outsider. We are opening up this space. We are going into this place, and we are the outsider looking in. But with these books, this is a crash course in art history about the importance of 2 panels of art and how the sequence here begins to tell a story, or it can tell a complete story. Really, this is a fascinating read, and this shows us how these comic books are put together in the panel itself. The art, look, form and function and scale and power and position and a punch, and one that I love the most, perspective. Yeah, these are great things. I love comic books. If you love comic books, you are quite literally in the right place at the right time. And just to let you know, this is a 2004 Abrams press publication. I pimped this. This was written and created by Les Daniels, Chip Kidd, and Geoff Spear. There is a link to the Amazon page in the description. You can get your own copy. It will look great on your coffee table. You can play along at home, and it makes a great gift for a geek. I know. Actually, there are links to all 4 of these books there. So let's get to it. Let's open the page. It's November the 7th. Here we go. Oh, gosh, yes. This is why it's a slow news week, and that's why we're doing something called DK Week. That's right, because we we have show notes. We make show notes. We use show notes here. And Pika puts in a lot of effort into being the executive producer of this program. Indeed, and I hope that you are clobbering your problems and not being clobbered by them. It is November the 7th. It's art by Chad Grothcup. It's from Hoppy the Marvel Bunny, number 11. Don't be jealous. I only have eyes for you when it comes to the cutesy anthropomorphic, little familiar. This is from Hoppy the Marvel Bunny, number 11, May of 1947. Seen here, out of costume, Hoppy the Marvel Bunny seems to possess a chemical laboratory worthy of Batman's Batcave. Yet, the only formula he can concoct is one for slapstick comedy. Waka wah. This tale is entitled Time Bomb. But you can tell there will be complications when the hero's sweetheart, Millie, decides to give him a present. I think I'll buy Hoppy an alarm clock. He's always late for his appointments. And then the fun begins. Hey, what's that ticking sound? Dun, dun, dun. It's Hoppy the Marvel Bunny in Time Bomb. Time Bomb. Ticking like a time bomb. Look, we can see the alarm clock is in the is ended up, and he's got some TNT in his hand because maybe that's a stick of dynamite, but it looks like we have no idea. But it's a cartoon, so it's got cartoon physics. So things that are solid become plastic in the cartoon world. I'm not making this up. This is like DC multiverse rules. This is why Captain Carrot rules. Seriously. But yeah, that's like science. Science was new back then in the 40s and 50s, and showing imagery of science. It was literally a different time. And so is this. This is a throwback to a different time. We're doing something called DK Week. It's a slow news week, so I'm taking my Dark Knight Returns collection and I'm just showing it off a bit, and we're talking about it. What's The Dark Knight Returns? It was a magazine published by DC Comics set in an alternate timeline showing a 55-year-old Batman who is retired, and Batman has disappeared. So Bruce Wayne is now living alone at stately Wayne Manor, and then he comes back. And it's a more violent world. And this was made in 1985-86 and a product of living in New York City in the 70s and 80s. It's like a Scorsese film of that age too, like Mean Streets, like Taxi Driver, like After Hours, like King of Comedy. There is these are love letters to New York City, and so there's some of that New York City love smuggled into Dark Knight Returns through Frank Miller and Klaus Johnson and Lynn Varney, the colorist. Color is very important in these comic books. For me personally, I think it's always been about darkness and about a light source and illumination, and that's like the most important part of the color scheme, like the use of color. Like look at Batman in darkness there, and this is about light source. So I feel like every panel is about light source when it comes to the coloring of this. This was done by hand back in the day. Why the distinction? Because we're talking today about another magazine that came out in 2001 and 2002 by the same battery. We're talking about The Dark Knight Strikes Again, otherwise known as DK2. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Dark Knight Returns, just to let you know, is a 1986 4-issue comic book series. We're reading from the wiki! ATST. Starring Batman, written by Frank Miller, illustrated by Miller and Klaus Janson, with color by Lynn Varley, and published by DC Comic Books. It tells an alternate story of Bruce Wayne, who at 55 years old returns from retirement to fight crime and face opposition from the Gotham City Police Force and the United States government. The story also features the return of classic foes such as Two-Face and the Joker, and culminates in a confrontation with Superman, who is now a pawn of the government. It's very eloquent. That's very well put. And that's how it begins. How begins this tale? This tale is set a few years after the conclusion of Dark Knight 1. And this is, yeah, of course, I'm reading from the wiki. The Batman, The Dark Knight Strikes Again, also known as DK2, is a 2001-2002 DC Comics 3-issue limited series written and illustrated by Frank Miller, no Klaus Johnson this time, and colored by Lynn Varley. They were married at the time, and they'll divorce in a few years. They divorced by 2005, but they were married in 1986. So they were, they were a team within themselves. A husband-wife team a lot of the times in comics. They did a lot together. Lynn Varley, she did Dark Knight Strikes Again. She did the 300 over at Marvel together. They did Elektra Lives Again, which was an amazing book, and it was like really in that 80s like super sexy style. Like with like Howard Chaykin did as well. Did Big Guy and Rusty Boy Robot with Geoff Darrow. Geoff Darrow's an amazing penciler. Amazing. She also colored the backgrounds for the 300 movie that was produced by Frank Miller. That's great. And, but yeah, that's a little crash course in Lynn Varley. We're going to talk, because we need to talk about color and light source, because that's what one of the biggest complaints of this book, I did not mind it, I liked it, was the coloring in this, because Lynn Varley had moved on from a paint and brush to the blossoming industry of Adobe Photoshop and digital coloring. I mean, it is night and day. The color palette that you can get digitally is millions of times stronger than the color palette of assembling color by hand. I love watching art streams. I watch James the Ginger Ninja. I watch him put together colors and demand of the colors and bring out the desired color that he had envisioned, because this is an artist, a trained artist that knows how to put together cyan, magenta, cerulean white, Van Dyke Brown, all this stuff together. I watch Bob Ross. I watch Anna the Star Wars girl. I watch these people put together color, assemble color. Coloring is an amazingly... the older the comic is, and there was a heyday of coloring when there was just more colors to choose from. There was digital assistance, but just art overall. People who assemble color to paint something or to make a piece of art. So Lynn Varley did the original Dark Knights by hand. Look at that. It was talking about, because I feel this is about darkness, and it's about illumination and about light source. So, Dark Knight 2, and this is when I came back to comics. This is great because it's brighter. I think it's great, and it tells the story of all the SOBs became. All the mutants became SOBs, Sons of Batman. That Batman was able to marshal into an army, so they all wear a cowl, and so he's got an army of Batmen who are actual people, and they're led by the former Robin, Carrie Kelly, who now goes by Catgirl. Catgirl spends the first issue busting out captured members of the JLA. See, superheroes are illegal. That's why Superman ripped off Green Arrow's arm in this book. All right? And that's what makes the coloring so cool in this scene, too. It's like, it took me... it's Batman versus Superman, this famous fight, all right? And we got it right down here. See that? The guy upside down there with the bow in his mouth? That's Green Arrow. See, he's upside down on the fire escape there. See, he's the old man with the white hair. He's got one arm. See that top panel that he's kicking? He's got one arm. Why? Because Superman ripped it off. Because Ollie wouldn't stop being a superhero. Then boom! It wasn't easy to synthesize, Clark. It took years and it cost a fortune. Luckily, I had both. And then he gets saved by Robin in the Batmobile. I love that scene. Yeah, she's such a good Robin. And Robin actually has a lot to do with DK too. I don't know if I should spoil a 23-year-old comic book or not, but Frank Miller apparently doesn't like Dick Grayson much. He didn't in the first one, and Dick Grayson turns out to be the big bad in this. So between Carrie Kelly busting out former members of the JLA, you have Dick Grayson, former sidekick who got fired by Batman on a revenge trip, killing the other members of the JLA, and it comes to a head. But I just want to talk about lighting, yes, of course, but coloring. Okay, so you would never get a panel like this in 1985. I mean, look at that. That's for some Frank Miller drawing of that's Hal Jordan kissing his wife goodbye and coming back to Earth. And he's just, but the colors there are telling the story. See, he's living as pure energy, as pure consciousness. He doesn't have a physical form. So he's getting the distress call from Earth to come home and help us. And he has to reform back into a human body. But he's Green Lantern. He can do this. But, and the colors in this tell the whole tale in a way. A part that will tell their part of the tale. But you would never get a color selection like this. And I want to bring up, and remember, Lynn Varney colored this. And this is a great Supergirl you probably never heard of. Okay? That is Lara. And she is the obvious daughter of Diana, Wonder Woman, and Kal-El, Superman. And she's been living in secret on Amazonia or Themyscira Island. So she's a Kryptonian, and she's an Amazon, and she is Supergirl. And this is one of the best characters I think Frank Miller has ever put out there. She's a lot of Elektra in Lara, but she's a great character. And an often underused Supergirl. But look at the shade. Look at the colors on Lara's outfit there. I mean, and look at the fading on her sleeves and by the skirt near her thighs. I mean, just this that they call it gradation, I believe. This is just wonderful use. This is wonderful use of colors. And so this was like too vibrant and maybe even too campy. And I believe too. I've said it before that Frank Miller's must be a huge fan of Batman 66. Because, I mean, it just keeps popping up again, reference after reference of the Adam West show. It's just, this is chock full of it in a way. And, so here's the last panel, and this is about lighting. Like I say, light source. What's the light source right there? It's an earth light, and it's cast on their faces of father and daughter in the family business. Truth, justice, and the American way. And we're going to get to other parts of the Dark Knight to close out the week. But thank you so much for tuning in today. We've been talking about comic books. And we're going to talk about comic books every day for the rest of the year. So tune in tomorrow, 3 p.m. U.S. Eastern, and we'll find out who we're talking about when we turn the page tomorrow. Please like and subscribe. I would love to earn your subscription. We make daily content here. We talk about comic books every day. We make regular content here. We talk about cooking. I'm a chef. We talk about spirituality and gratitude. I'm an ordained minister, an amateur theologian. We talk about planets in the early morning. We have a lot to offer. Sure. Come aboard. There's room for everyone, and you are welcome here. Cheers. God bless. Namaste. Good luck, and we will see you again tomorrow in those funny pages. Ciao. Bye-bye.